To bring down the rising suicide rate in the U.S., Cory Booker wants to appoint a federal coordinator tasked solely with suicide prevention. Amy Klobu wants to fund more local programs designed to prevent suicides among farmers and in tribal communities. Pete Buttigieg wants to add more mental health providers to the Department of Veterans Affairs and limit access to guns and other lethal means for people at high risk of suicide. The ideas came in response to a survey sent to 2020 presidential candidates by a new nonpartisan group called Mental Health for U.S. The group, which includes the National Alliance on Mental Illness, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the Kennedy Forum, launched in June with a goal of getting 2020 presidential and congressional candidates to go on the record about their mental health policy ideas. Mental Health for U.S. sent its survey to President Trump and every presidential candidate polling at or above an average of 1% in mid-July. The survey asked about a slew of topics related to mental health, from the shortage of providers to suicide prevention. Just 5 candidates responded: Senator Elizabeth Warren, Dems, Senator Bernie Sanders, Vermont, Senator Cory Booker, DNJ, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat Minnesota, and South Bend, Indiana, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Their answers, released Tuesday, offer insight into how the candidates plan to bolster suicide prevention efforts in the U.S. Advertisement: It's a pressing problem. In 2017, more than 47,000 people in the U.S. died by suicide, making it the 10th leading cause of death across the country. It's the second leading cause of death among people ages 10 to 34, after unintentional injury. There were more than twice as many suicides in the U.S. in 2017 as there were homicides. Our government is failing the mental health of Americans across this country, and we must do more, Warren wrote in her response. Each of the candidates who responded had a number of ideas about what more the government can do to prevent suicides. Sanders offered the most detailed response to the survey question on suicide prevention. The Vermont senator said he would dramatically expand access to community health centers, which already provide mental health, primary, and dental care to millions of people across the U.S. Among his other proposals to curb suicides, fully fund and expand the VA and its mental health care service and build out the National Health Service Corps and teaching health centers programs to recruit more mental health providers who can offer care in underserved areas. And Sanders, like Booker and Warren, highlighted his support for Medicare for All as a way to boost access to mental health care. Sanders added that his Medicare for All plan includes an evaluation of existing health disparities, and comes with a plan to address those disparities, including uneven access to mental health care. Several of the candidates also pointed to their work securing funding for federal mental health programs or their support for legislation to improve mental health care and prevent suicides. Warren, for example, noted that she introduced the Native American Suicide Prevention Act and was a co-sponsor of a bill to reauthorize Garrett Lee Smith Memorial Act, which provides funding for suicide prevention, counseling, and other mental health services. Booker and Buttigieg each specifically mentioned reducing access to guns in their responses about how to bring down the suicide rate. Booker offered the most details about his plans, which include working to set up a federal licensing program to make it harder for people at high risk of suicide to buy a gun. If you need a license to drive a car, you should need a license to own a gun, Booker said. He added that he wants to incentivize extreme risk laws, which make it easier for law enforcement and family members to ask a court to temporarily take away firearms from people at risk of hurting themselves or others. Klobuchar, meanwhile, said she plans to bolster investments in state and local suicide prevention programs, and would put a particular focus on veterans, farmers, LGBTQ people, and tribal communities. Each of the candidates echoed the need for better mental health care for veterans, who were specifically mentioned in the survey question about suicide prevention. Buttigieg emphasized that many veterans who die by suicide weren't receiving care from the VA. That, he said, highlights the need to get veterans more engaged in the VA, which will require the department to bring new clinicians on board so there are enough mental health providers to meet the needs of veterans. Our veterans have made significant sacrifices for our country, we cannot let them down, he said. We must develop communities that can welcome them home, with jobs and opportunity, as well as a robust and effective VA system that can take care of their mental health needs. Let's block ads.